This is Dr. Flowers. This session will be discussing test-taking skills in a brief fashion. A more detailed session is found in other locations. If you have any questions, please contact Janice at drflowersprep.com. Today, or in this session, we will be covering the test-taking skills. What are they? Where to find the test-taking skills? And we'll go through about 5 of them. There's more than this, but these are the basic ones and the most important ones. We'll go through camouflage and distractions, complex sounding options, dichotomy of options, similar pair options, and 3 out of 4 options. What are the test-taking skills? The test-taking skills are derived from actual analysis of real tests. Now, this was a test prior to 2015, but early analysis of the 2015 exam shows most of these are still applicable. The purpose of test-taking skills is to enhance intelligent guessing. It's to help you guess better because all of us are going to guess at some point. The first line is always having the skills and having the knowledge to get the questions correct instead of having to guess. The effect of this skill analysis is to increase your guess rate from 25 to near 40% if you do it successfully. How do you take advantage of it? You practice like anything else. This takes a lot of practice. You cannot go into the test having not practiced these and expect to be able to apply them. And equally importantly, the only good playing field to practice these on is with real AAMC tests. They're not with the made-up tests that a lot of us test makers do, because we don't have the culture and structure of the AAMC, even though we try to mimic that structure. So if you really want to get good at it and apply them effectively, you need to apply these skills on actual AAMC tests. Are they always effective? No, they're not going to be effective. You're guessing. If you're guessing, you're guessing. But they do have a probabilistic opportunity for you to increase your correct guess rate. So where do you find them? On our drflowersmcat.com site, you click Advanced, you go to the library, you go to Test Taking Skills, then the MCAT skills, and either STEM option analysis or option elimination analysis. In the session on concept structure, we explain how to get to this library and to navigate within it. First question. You can read it along with me if you like. And these are actual questions. These are questions from actual AAMCA tests. These are from the test before 2015, but as I said, there's applicability to after 2015. The stem of this question is, a chemist ran the following exothermic reaction catalyzed by iron until it was at equilibrium. And there's the reaction. I'm not going to read it. The chemist then made a number of changes. Which change will cause the concentration of ammonia to increase? Option A, B, C, D. You can look at those. So what's going on here? The test-taking skills is an exercise in pattern recognition. You'll be able to recognize patterns of questions that will allow you to apply the skills. So what needs to be recognized in this question? Well, this is a camouflage and distraction question. I'm not going to go into, again, all the details on these, but the idea here is that every question requires some concept to solve it. So you have to come up with some concept based on what's presented that is applicable to that question. Now, they're not going to tell you what that concept is in this question. In other questions, they do. That is what will make this type of question more difficult than the others, but it tells you the concept. It's right out there up front. You know, well, Newton's law, you apply that. But this one doesn't. You have to deduce the concept from the information provided. And the keys here is that equilibrium changes. If you studied Le Chatelier's principle very well, you understand these are key aspects of when that principle is applicable. You got to have a system at equilibrium, and then you have a change of perturbation to that system. So if you get to that, and in ours and other reviews as well, it explains very clearly how you apply the Le Chatelet principle. But if you never get to that, realizing that's how you're going to solve this problem, you're going to flounder and probably not even solve the problem correctly. But at some level, you had to decide, yep, this is a camouflage and distraction, but all they're asking me to determine, yep, this is Le Chatelet principle. Now let me remember what I learned about that and apply it to this problem effectively. Okay, that's one. Again, I'm not going to go into details. Second question, let's read along. Information that was in the passage. Now, I'm not giving you the passage. This was a passage question. A discussion of experiments of BAT, brown adipose tissue, using hamsters. That's what they discussed. There's a discussion of pineal glands in hamsters. It is stated that BAT produces thermogenesis effects. There is no mention of fish in the passage. The question is, would fish be expected to have BAT? And then they got the options A, B, C, D. So what's going on here? Well, what's the pattern that you're supposed to recognize here? This is what I call a complex sounding option. This is an extremely important concept. A corollary or related concept is something called basic knowledge. Basic knowledge is what you are required to use to answer the question. If the option or question cannot be assessed with your basic knowledge, not advanced knowledge, not PhD knowledge, not super PhD knowledge, but basic knowledge, then the question or option, the option cannot be correct. It cannot be correct, and you eliminate it. And students get confused with this all the time. Let me just go, I'll go quickly through these because this is so important. Option A, no, because fish cannot significantly regulate their body temperatures metabolically. Well, they didn't talk about fish in here. So what does that mean? That means your basic knowledge, well, just your basic knowledge includes your study knowledge, what you were supposed to study before you came to the test, and any passage knowledge that's in the test. Well, the fish were not discussed, so there's no passage knowledge available. See, they can give you advanced knowledge if they're presented in the passage. Otherwise, you're limited to the knowledge from your basic biology, in this case, review. So you have to remember what you learned about fish in basic biology. What you learn about fish in basic biology is that fish are, quote unquote, cold-blooded. You probably didn't learn about pineal glands in fish. You don't even know. Most of you probably don't even know what a pineal gland is because it wasn't discussed in basic biology. In a few places it may have been, but in most of the classes, I don't think it was discussed. Okay? So that would be beyond basic knowledge. But what you do know is that fish are cold-blooded. And cold-blooded mean that they cannot regulate their thermogenesis. So that one has some traction, so to speak. Let's look at option B. Option B is no, because fish use mechanisms such as vasoconstriction of skin capillaries for metabolic thermoregulation. Bunch of problems here. First of all, you know they don't thermoregulate. And do you really remember if they talked about vasoconstriction of skin capillaries? Well, they may have talked about vasoconstriction of capillaries in seals that did a deep dive or dive into cold water, but didn't really talk about it for fish. If they didn't, then that is beyond your basic knowledge. And if it's beyond your basic knowledge, it cannot be correct. Option C. Yes, because it is the most effective means of generating heat and water. So you really studied the most effective means of generating heat and water in your basic biology class. because it wasn't talked about in the passage. They didn't talk about in fish. So in your basic biology class, your professor talked about for fish the most effective means of fish generating heat in water. Is that what they did? I don't think so. I think most of the classes, there was nothing near this. So if it was nothing near this, it's not basic knowledge, and it cannot be answered. It cannot be answered, and therefore it has to be incorrect. It cannot be correct. Option D is even worse. Yes, because as in hamsters, temperature regulation in fish is controlled by the pineal gland. First of all, there's no temperature regulation. And do you really remember your professor talking about, as in hamsters, pineal glands regulate temperature in fish? Again, 99% of you, no. No. It's beyond your basic knowledge, so it cannot be correct. That's what complex sounding option is. It's going to take time to understand it, but it can be very applicable, and you got to be on your toes, and you got to have done good study. Let's look at the next one. And this is a passage too, but I'm not even showing the passage because I ain't got nothing in the passage going to help you. As atomic number increases in a horizontal row of the periodic table, ionization energy generally, A, B, C, D. What's the pattern? What's going on? What do I want you to be able to recognize and use to help you? This is a dichotomy of options. They use this a lot. This shows up a lot. You look at it quickly, you see A and B increases, C and D decreases. That's a dichotomy. And then you got your because. In a dichotomy of option, one half of that dichotomy is going to be correct because of what it stated. It's going to be because of the increases and decreases. But what you're supposed to know with the atomic number and ionization energy is that ionization energy does what? It increases from left to right. So you should already know it increases. That's the dichotomy. For dichotomy, you have to rely on some basic knowledge. And that basic knowledge you were supposed to study. You were supposed to know this for a periodic trend. They're going left to right. Yes, it's going to increase. So therefore, the half of the dichotomy that is correct from your basic knowledge is A and B, and you know the answer is not going to come from C or D. So you don't have to worry about C or D. So if you have to guess, you guess A or B. So immediately, your guess rate went from 1 out of 4, which is 25%, to 1 out of 2, which is 50%, which is a 100% increase in your guess rate. Now, I'm not going to solve it for you, but that's the idea. And this is also a double dichotomy. And that's even more interesting, but I'm not going to get into it right now. Let's go to the next one. The stem of the following procedural alterations. Again, nothing from the passage is needed, but this was a question from a real test. Of the following procedural alterations, which would be required if a researcher wanted to isolate a thermophilic species of bacillus? Yeah. A, B, C, D. So what's the pattern here? What's going on? What am I saying you should recognize and pick up on? Okay. This is called a similar pair of options pattern. What this is there's a similar pair in there that is distinct. And probabilistic-wise, not 100%, but probabilistic-wise, the answer probably comes from that similar pair. The similar pair here is option A and B, higher incubation temperatures and lower incubation temperatures. So if you had to guess, now this is assuming you don't know what the smack is going on. If you had to guess, you would guess from A or B. That's what I'm saying. Okay? If you understand what's going on, then you figure it out. But if you're in a pure guess mode, this is how you figure out what you're going to guess. So it'll be A or B. Now, there's much more complexity related to this, but again, I just want to give you the idea in this session. Let's go on to the next one. According to the Bronsted-Lowry acid-base theory, again, another question from a passage. You don't need the passage. According to the Bronsted-Lowry acid-base theory, Which of the following species is the conjugate acid of ammonia? Now, let's suppose you don't remember anything about conjugate acids. Can you get your guess rate up from 25%? Because that's what it's going to be if you can't remember nothing. This is how you do it. You look at this as a 3 out of 4 options pattern. Okay? The 3 out of 4 here, plus, plus, plus. There's 3 pluses. This doesn't require basic knowledge. A similar pair didn't require basic knowledge. It's just plus, plus, plus. So if I had to guess, my guess would be A, B, or D. I would not guess C. So my guess rate will go from 25% to 33%. And they use this pattern a whole lot. Okay? So those are some of the basic patterns on how you recognize. But again, I'm just going over it briefly here for you. So on the site, it goes into it in more detail about how to figure these things out.